Not everyone deserves access to you, and that lesson usually doesn't come easy. It comes through disappointment, through silence, through moments where you gave too much and got back confusion. Early on, you think loyalty means everybody eats, everybody's invited, everybody gets the same energy. But as life keeps moving, you realize access is valuable. Your time is valuable. Your focus is valuable. Your spirit is priceless. And handing that out to everyone is how you end up empty while they stay comfortable. Some people only want access so they can watch, not support. They want proximity, not responsibility. They want the benefits of your presence without respecting the cost it took to become who you are. And if you're not careful, you'll start shrinking yourself just to keep people around who were never meant to go the distance with you. That's not love, that's habit. And habits can be unlearned. You don't have to cut people off with anger. You don't need drama, speeches, or explanations. Growth doesn't announce itself. It just changes the rules. You start answering less. You start sharing less. You move with intention instead of impulse. And the people who were only there for convenience, they fade on their own. Not because you pushed them away, but because they couldn't survive where discipline lives. A lot of people confuse access with entitlement. Just because someone knew the old version of you doesn't mean they get unlimited entry to the new one. You earned your evolution through sacrifice, through nights nobody saw, through pressure that forced you to mature. Everyone can't come into that space. Some people bring noise where silence is required. Some bring doubt where vision needs room to breathe. Protecting your access isn't arrogance, it's strategy. When you're building something real, distractions are expensive. One wrong voice in your ear can cost you years. One toxic connection can drain energy you need for the mission. That's why you move selective, not emotional. You don't let temporary people have permanent influence. Pay attention to how people treat your time. Pay attention to how they react when you say no. Pay attention to whether they respect your boundaries or test them. That tells you everything. Someone who truly values you won't demand access at the expense of your peace. They'll understand that your focus is sacred. There's also levels to access. Everybody doesn't need full disclosure. Everybody doesn't need your plans, your fears, your next move. Silence is power when it's intentional. The more you grow, the quieter you get. Not because you're hiding, but because you're protecting momentum. You learn that everybody clapping isn't for you, and everybody quieting is against you. Sometimes the hardest part is accepting that people you love might not be good for where you're headed, and that hurts. But love doesn't mean self-sabotage. You can wish people well from a distance. You can respect history without letting it control your future. Maturity is knowing when presence becomes a liability. When you limit access, your mind gets clearer, your moves get sharper, your energy stops leaking in places it doesn't get returned. And suddenly, things start aligning. Opportunities show up. Peace becomes normal. Not because life got easier, but because you start fighting unnecessary battles. You weren't meant to be available to everybody. You were meant to be effective. And effectiveness requires focus. Focus requires boundaries. Boundaries require courage. The courage to say, I'm not for everybody and everybody's not for me. Once you accept that, you stop chasing validation. You stop explaining your decisions. You stop feeling guilty for choosing yourself. And that's when you really start moving forward, not fast, but solid. Not loud, but intentional. With people around you who respect the vision, not just the vibe. Not everyone deserves access to you. And the moment you truly understand that is the moment your life starts upgrading. Emotional discipline is real power. And most people don't recognize it until life tests them. Anybody can react. Anybody can explode, argue, post, shout, or prove a point in the moment. That doesn't take strength. That takes impulse. Real power shows up when you feel everything but choose your response with intention. When you understand that every reaction costs something, you start spending your energy like it matters. There will always be situations designed to pull you out of character. Disrespect, betrayal, misunderstanding, delays, losses. Life doesn't ask if you're ready. It just applies pressure. And pressure exposes who's in control. The person who reacts emotionally gives their power away. The person who pauses, observes, and moves strategically keeps it. That's the difference between temporary relief and long-term respect. Emotional discipline doesn't mean you don't feel pain. It means pain doesn't drive the car. You acknowledge the emotion, you study it, but you don't let it make decisions for you. Feelings are information, not commands. When you master that, you stop letting people control you with words, tone, or timing. You stop dancing to chaos that wasn't meant for you. Most conflict escalates because someone needed to win a moment instead of protect the mission. You don't need the last word when you got a long-term vision. Silence can be louder than an argument. Walking away can say more than explaining. When you're disciplined emotionally, you understand that ego wants attention, but purpose wants progress. People will test you when they see your focus. They'll try to provoke a reaction just to feel significant. That's a trap. When you don't react, you expose the weakness behind the behavior. Calmness under pressure isn't passive. It's controlled dominance. It's knowing you can respond but choosing not to because you see the bigger picture. Emotional discipline is also about consistency. Being solid when things go wrong, not just when things go right. Anybody can stay calm when life is smooth. The real test is when you're tired, when you're misunderstood, when you're giving more than you're receiving. That's what discipline turns into character. You don't broadcast your struggles. You don't make permanent decisions off temporary emotions. You don't let one bad moment define your direction. You sit with it, you breathe, you let logic catch up with feeling. And once clarity shows up, you move with precision. This kind of control builds respect, even from people who don't like you. They might not agree with your decisions, but they can't shake your composure. And composure is intimidating to chaos. When people can't read you, can't trigger you, can't predict your reaction, they lose leverage. That's power. Emotional discipline also protects your future self. Every impulsive reaction creates a trail you eventually have to clean up. Words you can't take back, bridges you didn't need to burn, opportunities you almost had but lost because you moved emotionally instead of intentionally. Discipline saves you from unnecessary damage. You start to understand that not everything deserves a response. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every challenge deserves a fight. Some battles are distractions dressed up as emergencies. Emotional discipline helps you tell the difference. As you grow, you stop proving and start preserving. You preserve your energy. You preserve your focus. You preserve your reputation. You understand that real power isn't loud, it's steady. It doesn't rush. It doesn't panic. It doesn't fold under pressure. When you master emotional discipline, life feels different. You move slower, but stronger. You react less, but accomplish more. You stop being controlled by the moment and start shaping the outcome. That's when people notice a shift, not because you said something, but because you became something. Emotional discipline is real power because it puts you back in control. And once you're in control, nobody else can run your life for you. Pain is information, not identity. But most people confuse the two. They let what happened to them turn into who they are. A loss becomes a label. A mistake becomes a personality. A betrayal becomes a permanent lens they see the world through. And without realizing it, they start living from the womb instead of learning from it. Pain was never meant to define you. It was meant to instruct you. Pain shows up to get your attention. It points at what needs adjustment, what needs boundaries, what needs growth. Just like physical pain tells you something is wrong in the body, emotional pain is a signal in the mind and spirit. Ignore it and you suffer longer. Identify with it and you stay stuck. But study it and it turns into wisdom. A lot of people wear their pain like a badge. They repeat the story so many times, it starts to sound like a truth. They introduce themselves through their trauma, explain every decision through what they've been through. That keeps them safe in a familiar cage, but it's comfort in suffering is still suffering, and staying there costs you your future. You are not what hurt you, you are what you learn from it. The moment you understand that, you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? That shift alone changes your posture in life. You stop seeing yourself as broken and start seeing yourself as sharpened. Pain exposes patterns. It shows you where you ignored intuition, trusted too quickly, stayed too long, or tolerated what you shouldn't have. That's not shame, that's insight. If you extract the lesson, the pain did its job. If you don't, it keeps coming back in different forms until you listen. The danger is letting pain become your excuse. When you let it define you, you use it to justify staying small, staying guarded, staying angry. You stop taking risks because you're afraid of feeling that hurt again. But growth always comes with discomfort. Avoiding pain completely is avoiding progress. Real healing doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means remembering without bleeding. It means you can talk about it without your voice shaking, without needing validation, without needing revenge. That's when you know pain has turned into information. It no longer controls your reactions. It informs your decisions. There's strength in processing pain privately. Not everything needs an audience. Not everyone deserves to hear your story. Some lessons are meant to be integrated, not explained. When you sit with pain instead of broadcasting it, you hear what it's actually trying to say. Pain also humbles you. It strips away ego and reminds you that you're human. But humility doesn't mean weakness. It means awareness. You become more selective, more intentional. You stop forcing situations that don't fit. You stop proving yourself to people who don't see you. When you carry pain as identity, it leaks into everything. Your relationships, your decisions, your tone. You react from defense instead of clarity. But when you treat pain as information, you move cleaner. You know what to avoid. You know what to protect. You know what to prioritize. Every scar you carry is evidence of survival, not damage. It means you went through something and came back with knowledge. That knowledge is valuable if you use it, useless if you let it weigh you down. Pain is temporary, but the lessons can last a lifetime. The goal isn't to erase pain, it's to outgrow it, to become someone who understands it, respects it, but doesn't live inside it. Once you stop identifying with pain, you start identifying with purpose. You stop saying, this is who I am, and start saying, this is what I learned. And that's when your story stops repeating itself and starts moving forward. Pain is information, not identity. And when you finally treat it that way, you take your power back. Boundaries are a form of self-respect, and if you don't set them, life will set them for you in ways you won't like. Most people don't struggle because they care too much. They struggle because they don't protect themselves enough. They give access without conditions, energy without balance, loyalty without limits. And then they wonder why they feel drained, overlooked, or taken for granted. When you don't have boundaries, you teach people how to treat you. Not with words, but with tolerance. Every time you accept disrespect, you normalize it. Every time you ignore your own discomfort to keep the peace, you send a message that your peace is negotiable. Over time, that becomes a pattern, and patterns don't break themselves. Setting boundaries doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. You're not shutting people out. You're deciding what gets in. There's a difference. You can be kind and still say no. You can be loving and still walk away. You can care deeply and still choose distance. That's maturity, not selfishness. A lot of people avoid boundaries because they're afraid of losing people. But the truth is, boundaries don't push away the right people. They reveal the wrong ones. The ones who benefit from your lack of limits will always resist your standards. They'll call you difficult. They'll say you've changed. What they really mean is you're no longer easy to use. Real self-respect shows up when you stop explaining yourself. You don't need a long speech to justify your limits. A simple no is enough. Silence is enough. Consistency is enough. When your actions line up with your values, people adjust or they exit. Either way, you win. Boundaries protect more than your time. They protect your identity. Without them, you start compromising who you are to keep situations comfortable. You laugh at things that bother you. You stay quiet when you should speak. You stay longer than you should. And slowly you drift away from yourself. Having boundaries also requires emotional discipline. You have to be willing to sit with the discomfort of disappointing someone. You have to be okay with being misunderstood. Growth isn't always applauded. Sometimes it's questioned. But choosing yourself isn't betrayal. It's alignment. Not everyone deserves the same level of access. Some people get conversation, some get trust, some get distance. That's not judgment. That's awareness. You move people based on behavior, not history. Just because someone's been around a long time doesn't mean they've earned a permanent seat. Boundaries don't mean you stop caring. They mean you stop bleeding. They stop you from overextending, overgiving, overexplaining. They give your energy direction. And when your energy has direction, your life gains momentum. The strongest boundaries are quiet. They're not announced. They're enforced. You don't argue about them. You don't threaten. You just act. You change how you show up. You change what you tolerate. People feel that shift immediately. When you respect yourself, others either rise to meet you or fall away. Both outcomes are necessary. Peace requires space. Growth requires separation. And sometimes love requires distance. At the end of the day, boundaries are how you tell the world, this is how I value myself. And the world listens whether you realize it or not. When you move with self-respect, life responds with clarity. Boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. And once you build them, everything that passes through your life becomes more intentional. Growth makes noise, but maturity moves quiet. In the beginning, progress wants to be seen. You talk about the plans, the vision, the grind. You announce every step because you're still proving something, maybe to others, maybe to yourself. There's nothing wrong with that stage. That noise is part of the process. It builds confidence. It creates momentum. But at some point, if you're really evolving, the volume drops. Maturity understands that not every move needs an audience. The more you learn, the less you explain. You stop advertising your discipline and start living in it. You realize that attention can be expensive, and too much of it invites opinions that don't align with the mission. Silence becomes strategy, not secrecy. When you're immature in growth, you want validation. You want recognition. You want people to know how hard you're working. When you're mature, results speak for you. You're not chasing applause, you're building something that lasts. You understand that loud progress attracts spectators, but quiet consistency attracts outcomes. There's power in moving unnoticed. When people don't know your next move, they can't interfere with it. When they don't know your struggles, they can't minimize them. When they don't know your plans, they can't plan doubt. Privacy becomes protection. You learn to keep your circle small and your intentions clear. Maturity also teaches you timing. You stop reacting immediately. You stop responding emotionally. You pause. You assess. You choose the right moment to speak or act. That restraint separates impulse from intelligence. It's not about being silent all the time. It's about speaking when it matters. The quiet move doesn't mean a small move. It means a deliberate one. You might be making the biggest changes of your life, but from the outside, it looks calm. That's because chaos isn't driving you anymore. Clarity is. You're not rushing to prove growth. You're committed to embodying it. As you mature, you stop arguing your truth. You let behavior be the explanation. You don't correct every misunderstanding. You don't defend every decision. People will think what they think, and that's fine. Your job isn't to manage perceptions, it's to manage progress. Noise often comes from insecurity. Silence comes from certainty. When you're sure of who you are and where you're going, there's nothing to announce. You move with confidence, not urgency. You understand that real growth compounds quietly, like interest, day by day, choice by choice. Maturity also knows when to walk away without a scene. No closure speeches, no emotional exits, just distance and dignity. You realize that some chapters don't need an explanation. They just need to end, and you end them clean. When you move quietly, you conserve energy. You're not wasting time reacting to every distraction or criticism. You're focused, and focus multiplies results. That's why mature growth feels steady, unshaken, grounded. Eventually, people notice the shift. Not because you told them, but because your life looks different, your circle changes, your priorities sharpen, your presence feels solid. That's when you know maturity has taken over. Growth made the noise to get you started. Maturity makes the silence to keep you going.